Hey Flower Tribe, it's Kelly Lehman from Cranberry Fields Flower Farm and Lucy Lehman, and today I want to answer a question from one of the Flower Tribe members, and that is, can I cut off my dead hydrangea blooms? So I'm going to show you the way that I take care of my dead hydrangea blooms in my New Jersey flower farm and garden. We're planting hardiness zone 7, and here we are with some mophead hydrangeas, and there's kind of like different cutting rules for different types of hydrangeas. So we're going to start here with the mopheads, and here's the story with them. So mophead hydrangeas, and there's a lot of different varieties, they come in on what's known as old wood. There's a few stems here. You can tell they are very woody. This wood was here last summer, and towards the end of summer, beginning probably around like late July, August, these beautiful blooms were being put in place on these green stems on that old wood. So what's happening this year is the same thing. So next year's flowers are being put in place, and you can check that out back here. Here's one of those, wooded stems that are here. We're towards the end of July right now. This is, some of this year's beautiful blooms that were put in place last August, last July. And next year's blooms are being put in place right now. So I want to make sure that I don't disturb next year's flowers when I'm cutting off some of the blooms from this year. So what I'm going to do is take a look at these stems, and I'm going to very gently cut off the ones that I want to make into either flower arrangements or the ones that are kind of burnt up and crummy. But I want to make sure that I don't cut this whole stem down here, because if I were to have cut this stem here, I'm going to cut off about, 3 or 4 or 5 different gorgeous flowers from next year's garden. I'm going to come in here and give it a cut right above a fresh set of green leaves, right above that. Okay, guys, that last step was really important, so I want to show you it one more time with this burnt out bloom. I go down the stem. I'm looking for a set of fresh green leaves, and I'm going to make my cut right above them. Now this one happens to have 2 little green nodes that are going to be next year's flowers. Sometimes they're harder to see. These are pretty obvious, but I'm making my cut right above that fresh set of leaves, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to get more blooms next year. And here's the reason why I'm going to get more blooms. When you cut your hydrangea right above a set of green leaves, this can stimulate growth hormones that are produced just below the cut. And this could lead to new stem growth from the node. That's where that leaf meets the stem, just below that cut. It can also lead to increased branching and bushiness and more blooms for your hydrangea in the future. And I'm going to strip off the leaves, and I'm going to put this one right in water, because I can wind up making a beautiful flower arrangement out of this. Even though it's dried out, it's gorgeous. So I'm not going to use a giant bucket like this for this bloom, but what I usually do is I'll come out here with like different size containers of water. And so the smaller stems are going to go in the smaller containers. When I do this, I want to make sure that I give it a fresh cut. Guys, hydrangeas are notorious for flopping prematurely in the vase. So you want to make sure that you give it a fresh clip so that you don't have any kind of like a cloggage on the bottom of the stem from kind of like scabbing over on the way to the vase. And you're going to just plunk it into water really fast. And there, you can tell we've been cutting here all day. But let's go back to like the blooms that were all burnt up. So it's the same concept over here. So here's a bloom that's pretty much beat up. The sun got it. We had, really crazy temperatures. I'm going to cut this one down here. I'm going to cut it above a set of new leaves. Okay, and here we go. And this guy I think I'm not going to use for the arrangement because it's kind of beat up, so I'm just going to kind of discard that. And yeah, so we're going to move on. So guys, as you're out here and you're kind of cutting off those blooms that were all burnt up and scorched, you can also do a quick cleanup. So even though it's July and you're not supposed to prune any of your hydrangeas, you can come out here and you can give them a little cleanup if they're spilling out over the garden bed. So this is like a perfect example. I've got this cute little garden bed in the front of my house, and a lot of the hydrangeas were spectacular this year, but they just kind of spilled out over the bed. So once again, I'm going to come in here with that same idea. Since this is a mophead hydrangea, I don't want to disturb the wood that has next year's flowers being put in place right now. But what I can do, just to give it a cleanup, is to give it a little clip. I'm going to clip it right here. Next year, 2 more hydrangea blooms are going to come from this stem. You can kind of see them being put in place right now. And as long as I cut above those 2 sets of leaves, I'm going to wind up having 2 brand new stems come out here. So 2 for the price of 1. So it's a really good idea to cut above a fresh set of leaves so you can get that added bonus. And then we're going to just strip off the leaves, and we're going to add this to this cute little arrangement. Once again, I put them right in the water. Okay, and so we've been out here snipping, and this is like spectacular. I mean, this is like a cleanup vase. So like these were just the hydrangeas that I used when I was cleaning up my plant, as I was getting rid of like the scorched ones, but these were the ones that were kind of left over that still look spectacular, and a lot of them are, you know, going to dry out like this in the vase. Now the green ones that you're seeing are actually Annabelle hydrangea, so I want to give you the rules for cutting smooth hydrangea this time of year, especially when they're scorched, and there's a little bit of a different set of rules with them, so let's go check them out. They're over here. So with your smooth hydrangea, like your Annabelles and your Incredibles, those blooms came in this year on something called new growth. So most of them came in from like the base of the plant. They've got these long, beautiful green stems. And so I don't really have to worry about cutting next year's blooms off at this time of year. And here's why. Next year, when this plant starts putting forth like the new blooms for next year, they're going to come from the base of the plant, just like this guy did. And they're not going to come in until probably spring, like mid-spring. Sometimes it even takes to like, you know, like towards the end of spring for these blooms to even start being put in place. So any kind of like cutting that I do now is not going to affect next year's flowers. So I can come in here, and if there's some like dead ones, I'm looking for some good examples of some dead ones. Here's just like a regular, like a really scorched one here. I can cut any of these out, and I can cut them out at any length, and I don't have to worry about next year's blooms being affected. And you can also, at this time of year, come in here and you can cut the ones that are like lime green, because these are going to give you beautiful dried flowers, and you know, they'll stay in the vase and look gorgeous for, you know, like weeks and weeks and months because they're dried out. So once they're in that kind of lime green stage, you can cut them once again at any length, and you don't have to worry about next year's flowers coming in. And then once again, though, I am going to pop them right into a vase of water, because they do look better when they're a little bit fresher. So they'll stay in the semi-dried stage for probably like a week or 2 and then dry out. But it's a really good idea. The same thing I did with my mopheads. I'm going to come and look for any kind of dead, damaged, or diseased branches, because that's just going to make my plant healthier. So as I come in here, I also see that there's some stems that have little holes in them, and that's an indicator that there's like bugs living in there. So I'm going to give a little bit of a clip down here just to get rid of that. Now we came in here, Sheldon and I, last week, and we did a massive harvest. So that's why there's like all these kind of like weird looking branches. I mean, we must have cut like 10 buckets full of these flowers, you know, just for the flower farm production. And so that's why it's looking a little bit odd. And, you know, we got rid of a lot of the dead stuff there. But right here is a perfect example. Anytime you have any hydrangea that has a bent neck, whether it's on a mophead or on a smooth hydrangea or a limelight, it's always best to get rid of those, because once again, this is stressing the plant out, because it's got this dead bloom on the plant and it's just stressing it out. It's not helping it. So here's a set of fresh leaves. I'm going to cut it right above that set of fresh leaves. Whoop. Okay, and you can cut out the bent neck blooms at any time, because chances are the water is no longer going to be able to make it up that stem. This bloom is just going to continue to die, and it's not helping the flower. So you can kind of clip out those, you know, like bent blooms at any time. And I'm going to cut it right above a fresh set of leaves. And so we'll get rid of all the bent neck ones also. And then I'm just going to go right down the line and keep cutting out any of those scorched ones, because that's not going to help. And the scorched ones, look, this one even has like a little bit of like mildew on it. So I'm going to make sure that I cut it. I'm going to cut it above a fresh set of leaves. And I like leaving as many of the leaves in place as I can all summer, because that's also feeding the plant. So unless you have to cut those, you know, like leaves way back, you know, for like a garden cleanup, leave them in place, because don't forget, photosynthesis is the process of how the plants are feeding itself. So you want to leave those beautiful green leaves in place if you can. So that's the story with the smooth hydrangea. So all these tips will work for your Annabelle hydrangea, your Incredible hydrangea. Thank you so much for joining us in this video, and please say hi to us over on my Cranberry Fields Instagram page. You can also find us on TikTok And I made a whole bunch of podcasts for you. You can find those wherever you listen to your podcast. And please also let me know where you're viewing this from in this great, big, beautiful world. I love to see how our flower tribe is growing around the globe each week. Also check out our Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group, because there's thousands of gardeners from all over the world, and they're asking and answering loads of garden questions over there. And know that YouTube has allowed me to have a super thanks button attached to this channel. And if you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee or let us know if you appreciate these videos, that would be terrific. Or you could just give us a like or a comment below. I would appreciate that. And I will see you guys in the next video.